like, he's getting so big. I keep like, I'm blowing through baby clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it's COVID, so it's not like he has to get ever dressed for like an occasion.
Right.
So I feel like we're casual over here, mister. Not a lot of outfits going on.
It's a onesie life, you know.
It's a onesie life. Why wouldn't it be? Like,
I think the whole first year is a onesie life. You don't have to go anywhere. I mean,
you know, for Christmas, I was like, all right, Christmas onesie. But like, we have these outfits and I'm just like, I'm not putting him in this. Like, where are we going that warrants this ridiculous outfit? And it's so sweet that people bought us like so many nice clothes, but I'm just like, we're literally not going anywhere.
Yeah. But
this week, I feel like, how is it Friday already? But then also it was such a long one.
Yeah, the snow is getting old, I gotta say.
I feel like we're getting more this weekend. And I think they said ice, which I guess it depends on where you guys are versus where I am. But we have so much snow that if we get ice on top right now, it's going to be major power outages because we'll be snapping trees.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Leslie, how are you?
Hey, how are you? What's the snow by you, Dania? What's going on in Pennsylvania? It's really.
Oh, it's a lot of snow.
Do you have a lot too?
Yeah, we have a lot, and it's been going on and off for the last week. Yeah. So it's just ice on top of ice on top of ice.
Our dogs are like, and we have big dogs. Our dogs are on the surface. Wow. Like they're not even sinking. Oh, and it's so sad though. Like they start to pee and then they start to sink in. And you can't help but laugh, but they're like, what's going on?
Did you see what happened in Texas on that highway?
I saw that.
Yeah. Fort Wayne, they have no idea what to do with snow and ice. Like it would have been salted, it would have been plowed, it would have been.
But also, I just like,
over there, they're like, maybe it'll go away, maybe it'll just melt, maybe it's not really snow. Like
I guess, like and again, I went to college in Maine, so like I got introduced to snow driving really early. But don't you think sometimes it's just common sense to slow down? And I guess I question that it's not common sense to slow down because people start flying and it's like,
didn't do anything. They didn't plow the roads. They didn't salt it before the snow fell. I think it was just they didn't manage the roads.
Plus, people don't know how to drive in it.
Well, I think I thought they tried to stop, but the brakes wouldn't hold because of the ice. Like
it's totally true. I mean,
they were going.
That's what happens when you're driving on ice. Yeah.
5 people dead.
Well, are we waiting for John?
Yeah. He'll be on shortly. Or so I think.
Can you guys hear my TV in the background?
Yeah.
Is it loud?
No, it's no big deal.
Okay.
So maybe, like, Greg, could you put up what you sent us on the email? Can we get like a screenshot of that? Maybe that would help.
So Leslie, this is going to be so helpful because Greg is going to try and do a screenshot of what the developers actually showed because it doesn't actually look like that document. And then I think that'll help us streamline our comments.
Yeah.
Because I had to open that document like 4 times before I could even like digest and start to make comments because it doesn't look like any of our branding or marketing or anything, but Greg has examples of what it really would look like.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think as we progress through it, that might be easier to make comments on because it looks different than like what got sent over.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of harken back to that document and talk about flow. But I thought you guys had really, really good comments and stuff and suggestions. I'm just going to open up these blinds. I'll be right back.
Okay, that's good.
Hey all.
Hey,
Hi.
John. Hey, John, how are you with Figma? Are you comfortable with using that?
Yeah, I mean, I only review it to use the pages and stuff.
Yeah, as I was going through that, it's just, it seems like it's just so, it's not, you just have to be comfortable with moving around in a new environment.
Yeah, I don't think they make it easy. That I find it tricky.
Agreed.
There may be, I think there's like tutorials on their site that kind of give you an idea of how to navigate through it. It's not really clear from the interface how to use it. And I never
Totally.
used it before now. I think in one sense, what they're trying to do is present us the pages, which it does, so we can kind of see where they are in the development, and it allows for continuous threads of conversation with comments and feedback, and it kind of centralizes it. An old school, what it's replacing is an old school printout, like a PDF of what the screens look like, and then you trying to mark up a PDF and having 5 people mark up a PDF, giving it back to them, and trying to consolidate that information.
Yeah, it's like a Google Doc, right? Like it's the same concept
so
of Google Docs,
really
but more for
kinda-
visual.
Yeah, and it kind of centralizes it, and why they use that tool, I don't know. It works for them.
It's comfortable for them, it's okay. That's what really matters.
If we want to come up, if you guys feel that it's cumbersome and we want to come up with a different way for them to present the screenshots to us.
I'm fine with it. I think that Greg was just trying to, rather than go through that document that he had sent over, he was going to grab the screenshots from Figma and go through them, because I think it has better flow and it's easier for us to comment. I think he's just struggling as to how to do that.
It's just a challenge.
Yeah, I mean,
but
you
you can expand it and go page by page. It's really not that hard.
he doesn't even have to grab the screenshots. He could go and share his screen on Figma, and we can all review it simultaneously.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to do right now.
That's the idea. That's the idea anyway. And I'm actually looking for a copy of. Sorry, go ahead.
Before we kind of really get started, the only comment I have right now regarding the PDF you sent to the profile pages is it appears, Greg, as though you're probably spending a good bit of your time like formatting and laying things out. And it might be a lot easier if you create a document and just say, this is the information we need at this point. On one screen, we get this information, and list that information out as far as what you want to potentially collect, and identify that, I could select more than one. I can only select one of these. When I'm done, you go to the next page, etc. And I think that would save you a lot of effort and time in laying out these pages, because really all the developers need is, what information do they need to collect?
Yeah, exactly.
How is it grouped together? And let them come up with the design. In other words, you may spend a lot of time formatting something that's like check boxes, and there might be a better way to do that.
So John, you're suggesting that basically like Greg just does an information dump and then let them format it?
Yeah, let them come up with the design and the
Yeah.
layout. I mean,
100%.
like if I look at your PDF, I mean, you're probably using Microsoft Word or some other software tool to kind of lay it out. And you're probably spending a lot of time getting things aligned, putting in check boxes, and like laying it out that way. And I just think your time would be much better spent if you just say, page 1, here's what we want to capture.
Mm.
You know, group A, group B, group C on page 1. And then when you're done, you go to page 2 or page 6, depending on what your options are.
Right.
And let them come up with the design, let them lay it out. And because your time is much more valuable in providing, this is what we want, this is what we need. You shouldn't be trying to lay it out like you expect it to look when it's on your screen.
I think that's a really good point, John.
It's 100% true. What it does for me is that if you saw the derivations I went through to get to where it is, you'll see things shaken up, moved around. This belongs later, this belongs in the bottom of the screen, whatever. So I use it more as my own cogitation tool to work through it. Not so much as this is what it's going to look like, because it's not. It's definitely not going to look like this. But like, for example, when I was working through the different roles, I was thinking, okay, now what if I'm this kind of person? What am I doing here? What kind of resources do I need? Or that kind of person? Where do I want to go? What what I want my experience to be when I come to the site. So as I was going through this, by writing it, typing it out and writing it down, it helped me, put it into my own head as to what to do. Do we have everybody on board we're expecting? Is Bill supposed to be here?
I don't know. I think maybe we can get started and he can jump in if it's already almost 11:20.
Yeah. All right. So what I'll do first is show, I guess we'll show what they were doing. And so in the site, let me go to this one. Screen. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is where they started and left off, as far as I could tell, on the website development for developing your own profile. So you see, it's pretty basic. You have first name, last name, country, state, that stuff. And then it says bio. And then on the left side, you see profile settings, notifications, change password, and then others. And that's really nothing that we really care about on this call. But then it goes right to those notifications. So it doesn't really go, it's just the first page, really. So that's all well.
Greg, what does bio imply? Like, are you uploading a document there?
No, it's going to be.
What does that mean?
I'm assuming, because they did it, I'm assuming they're saying write out who you are and what you do in sports and why you're there. I'm a tennis player and I play at my.
I believe.
Would it be better at that point to have?
I feel like we should put like headline or like, how people have like a one-line sentence or something underneath them that's like a catch-all. I think bio to me implies you're uploading a document, like a resume, like a sports resume. So just a consideration that as I'm looking at that, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
At that point, can't we have on the first page, this person is a coach, a player, a parent,
maybe role.
Well,
yeah.
hold on. I believe that this screen that we're looking at now is when someone signs up and they receive their email to verify their email address. The next time that they log in, they're going to get a screen that says, thank you for verifying your email address. You're now a member of UBsports. before you can use the website, we need a little bit more info about you. And this was the required or mandatory information that we were going to collect, which was their name, the country, state. I don't know how phone number got in there, date of birth, and zip code. Those, I believe, were the required, and I think we were going to optionally allow them to choose their primary sport of interest and their role in that sport.
Right. I
So-
think we changed that afterwards. Right.
You know, I believe that when you come in here, either this screen is this kind of the screen that you'll get during that sign up and verification process of the mandatory data. So I'm not sure where phone number came or bio, but assuming that you've already gone through that whole registration process and filled out the mandatory data, when you come to this screen, it's going to already have your name, your state, your date of birth, and your zip code already pre-filled, because you would have been required to submit that, whether it's through this specific screen or another screen. We'd have to look for like the sign up pages, because I know it was somewhere different. And
I
it
think
may
this,
not
the
exactly
sign up,
be
right,
laid
the
out.
sign up page doesn't have the phone number. It just has one name, and definitely
Yeah.
doesn't have bio, and it has the other things. It also says your favorite sport. So that's a totally separate page that someone first gets when they go to UBsports. It's like this, you know, their initial sign-on page before you have to sign terms and conditions there, and if you're under 18 or 17, it's going to say you have to get your parents' email as well. So that all happens before you get to this page here with the account setting.
Oh, okay. Because that's what I was going to say. If the date of birth is below, 18, this is going to be another option to have your parents.
Yeah,
So this is all done prior to this screen, is what you guys are saying.
correct. This is the screen you come to that it jumps after you.
You've been verified.
Right, you verified your email.
Got it. And in the sign up page too, you also choose your primary sport there too as well. Is that what you guys are saying?
Yes, on the first page, when you first sign up, it says, "What's your favorite sport?"
Oh, okay.
Can we see that page? Do you have that page or no?
That would be optional. Like, they don't have to pick a sport at that point.
No, I mean like the main, like the first
The
page.
sign up page.
People like,
Yeah, the sign up page. Can we see that?
yeah.
That just helps us with the flow. So
Yeah.
we're flowing with you.
I haven't
You know?
seen one of those. John, have you seen that page?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
it should be in there. Keep
We need to be
scrolling down.
with you.
It's probably under where it says invite email and
Invite email.
like I'd look at
Invite
invite on
email.
click. I don't know what they call it, but invite email or invite on click. So like when you click your invite, unless that's an invitation to a group or event or something.
Okay, this is the more sports profile. So let's pull this up to 50. This is where you complete your profile. That's the more
But
profile.
that's not the first page, right? I think we're thinking about like the first page.
Right, this is
I
the
think
more
this-
profile detail.
This may be the page you get after you verify your email and log in for the
That's
first
what it
time.
looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, I mean, when bio came in on that page, and I believe that we were only supposed to have just one place for them to pick one sport, so I'm not sure how the whole list of sports got there. Because we really only wanted them to fill out what we felt were the mandatory elements that we need for their profile: the age, their location, the parental process is part of that, et cetera.
Okay, so this is where I think we really have to work on it, because this is a sign-up page. This is where you have, I agree with the terms and conditions, your email, password, and I agree. It doesn't get to that. You set password, and then you're into the site. One page after sign in.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think that, I don't think you can assume that the sequence in which these screens are laid out is necessarily the sequence in which they're going to be displayed. Like the reset password, you're not going to see unless you click the button to say reset password. So
Right.
like these aren't in sequence as to how a user will experience the process.
Right, so I think the next page really is this one here.
Yeah, usually don't you get prompted like on the homepage, there would be like a little icon or something that might pop up to say, you know, further complete your profile or tell us, you know, like usually I feel like there's like a little red dot or something that'll be by your profile.
Well,
that
there's
you know
something, but
to
this
click.
this screen that we're looking at right now, when you sign up and you verify your email address, the very first time after that you try to log into the site, you're going to get this screen.
Okay, cool.
If you cancel out of this, you don't log in. Like you can't get into the site.
Got it.
The member, you don't see the member stuff. You'll see anonymous stuff, like anybody from the public that goes to UBsports, you'd see, but you would not be considered login, because we don't want them during the sign up. We want to simplify the sign up process so they give us just their email and password. We don't want to ask them 10 other questions. What's your name? Where do you live?
Got it.
Because people will fall off.
Yeah, you'll lose them.
You won't get that conversion. Okay. So the sign up itself is email and password. The system will send an email to that person, so we know that it's a real valid email address.
Got it. And then they click on that email and it takes them to this
The
screen.
person will have to click a link which will verify that the email address is valid. And then the next time that they go to log into the site, which might be right then and there, or maybe they put it away and do it a week later, whatever, they're going to be forced to give us some mandatory profile data.
Cool.
Which we have to collect before they're allowed to log into the site. So the user has tried to log in, and we're going to get something, and instead of it saying at the top, complete your profile, it might say something along the lines, complete your profile. We need to know the following in order to finish your registration for the site. Okay, so you might have some extra language to tell them why you're collecting this before they can use the site. Okay, so those elements, and I forget exactly what the elements were. They were identified elsewhere, but it was your name, it was your country, it was your state. And like you'll see that there's two fields that say country. One of those is supposed to be state. They're already aware of that. The date of birth was required, the zip code was required, which could also be a postal code, like if you live in Canada or France or something like that. So then there were two optional pieces of data we were going to collect, and that is, what's your primary sport? Okay. Anybody who's really serious about sports typically has one primary sport that they're focused on. Not 100% true, but they'll be able to say, you know, I'm primarily a tennis player, or I'm primarily a basketball player. And my role is I'm a participant or athlete, I'm a coach, I'm a parent, I'm a something. But those two things were optional, that they didn't have to tell us necessarily right away what sport they were interested in. It was a way for us to follow up with them and be able to target them with some messaging right away that says, here's some groups you might be interested in, because we could pin that based on what their initial sport was that they selected or what their role was, that kind of thing. So that's what that screen is for. Greg and I have talked to the developers about refining that page and correcting it. Obviously, they've not updated what's on display for us to view right now. Okay, so it's not current, but it's similar to what they're going to be asking.
Sounds amazing.
So then they skipped over a bunch of stuff and went to different things. But right now, that's basically where they left off with the profile development. So we basically had to take it from there and move on, which is why I did that whole other document.
I just have a quick question, and I don't want to gloss over it because then I'll be forever lost. So,
Yeah, me too.
John, let me just ask you this. So when you get the link to verify your email, when you click that link, will that link prompt you to the sign in again, just to make sure that that person that clicked the link knows their username and password? Or will it go, once you click the link, will it go right to?
It'll take you to the site, and you'll get a login screen.
Gotcha.
And you'll have to log in
again
successfully.
Got it. That's what I want to know.
Once you log in successfully, you will know that the person who created the email and password is the one who clicked the link. Or maybe you shared the info with a friend, but we can't tell the difference. Okay. So it's someone who has authorized access. At that point, the member's profile goes into a status called verified. If someone's profile, their sign-up data, never gets verified, after a certain period of time, that email address is purged from our system.
Okay.
So if for example, you put in an invalid email address that's a typo or something, or you put, instead of John 1, you put John 11, and it goes to the incorrect person, well, they're not going to be able to verify it. So that invalid email is going to get purged from our system. So once they log in, they go into status of verified. Once they get into a status of verified, the system will, and they do that login, the system marks their profile as verified, and then it will display this data collection page for the mandatory profile data. And once
that'll be auto-populated, I'm assuming, because the system would already know the first name and last name based on.
Not yet. This is where they first tell it to us.
Because if sign-in is just username,
right,
all they've done is
and email,
the verified link. They've logged in.
Gotcha.
So they've never been able to log in before. So now they've logged in. Verified.
Gotcha.
It's going to say, here's some extra info that we have to have from you in order to make you a member. And then their status switches from like verified to active or something like that. There's another status. Okay. So in order for someone to come back later and log in, they have to be verified and active, meaning that they've completed the verification, they've completed this mandatory data. Okay. And now they're a member. They can use the site and log in at will.
Got it. Thank you.
So at that point, we would go back to the profile pages that Greg loaded initially, which is if you go into your profile settings, you would then see a different page. It doesn't quite look like this one will, because this is only the mandatory data.
And that's the page Greg was trying to get us to kind of help him with.
That's right. That's where we really got to work.
Okay.
Right.
And you're saying just list what we want, not how we want it to look, just list what we want. That's what you're saying, John.
Yeah, like if I look at, Greg's PDF, it's laid out almost as if he's designing what the page is going to look like.
Right.
There's this, you got a checkbox, You got a couple check boxes. You have a text field where you free form put in something. You have a drop down box, etc. And while that may be valuable to Greg, my only suggestion is, and not that you have to change the way you're doing it if this works for you, but it seems like just to format that in a document for yourself takes more effort than it does to do a brain dump of this is the first page, this is what we need to collect, this is what the person does after they fill out that page of data. Depending on how they fill it out, they'll go to page 2 or page 6 or page 20, whatever it is, which could be sports specific pages, etc. So that's going to be, I would think that would be far more time efficient, cost efficient, and effective to get that brain dump out without, it might take you 5 minutes to say, okay, here's the favorite sports that I want the person to pick from. But it might take you 30 minutes to tweak it to get it to look the way you want it to on this document.
So what
So
on that
that's-
on that complete profile page, what on that page would then allow that person to move to another page? Because it's just name, country code, country, phone number. Other than bio, what on that page would allow that person to then move to another page? Because I don't see what will distinguish that person.
It would be the save button, but I think the concept that we are expecting is that this profile will be more of a wizard, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure exactly what the developers have in mind because they have 2 menu options on the left. There's account settings and profile settings. The account settings, it seems, is what they're considering the mandatory data,
Right.
that we collect, your age, stuff like that. The profile settings would be different in that would be more of the profile wizard. Like if, for example, if I move or change my phone number, for example, I'm going to want to update my account settings, but not necessarily go through my entire profile. Okay. So there may be that might distinguish why they have it as 2 separate items in the navigation on the left column. Okay. But to answer your question, when you get into the profile page, keep going, Greg, keep going. Let's get to one of the profile pages. Once you get to a profile page, the save button at the bottom, it would be more of a wizard where it would say next instead of save, or it might say save and next page. Okay, something along those lines where it would guide the user through that process.
Got it.
I also believe, and this may not be part of the initial build, but given that the profile can be 20 pages long, if I, as a user, want to go in and update one thing for one sport, which is on page 18 of my profile, okay, and consider that my profile, the length of my profile is going to vary based on how many activities I'm involved in.
Mm-hmm.
If I say I'm involved in 10 sports, all of that data regarding that sport in my profile, it's going to make my profile this big, whereas somebody who's only in one sport, their profile is going to be this big. Okay. So I would imagine that we will have some kind of an indicator in the navigation that kind of shows the user where you are in your profile. So when I click profile settings and I get that first profile page, instead of just saying save and go to next page, I don't want to have to click that 16 times just to get to page 18 of my profile.
Yeah, so you have like a profile
I want
overview
to have
timeline on the top, and you can just
and I could click whatever You
Right.
know, now it's not going to necessarily say page 1, page 2, page 3.
Right.
It might say general physical statistics. My
Right.
terminology might be off, okay? But
Yeah.
it'll say general physical characteristics, football, tennis, baseball, basketball. And I could click one of those to go to that specific section of the
Mhm.
profile.
Mhm.
But for someone who's filling out the profile the very first time, on one of the first pages, I'm going to say, here's all the sports I'm interested in. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be this navigation that simply guides you from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. So if football has 3 pages of data to collect, it's going to guide you. The next button will take you football page 1, page 2, page 3. And at that point, the next button will take you to the next sport, page 1.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm going to take us off this set of docs because that's about all we've gotten to is right here, the profile development. And that's where I really wanted to go is, okay, now what's next? And that's this one here. So this is basically where we leave off. Is
So
the information, and then this is where we have to work this out. If you're a sports, I put this on top for now because that's a whole different set of questions. And I don't want industry pro to get lost and say there's nothing here for me if they check on, because their time is money and they're like sort of busier people than people are there for to hang out and learn about their sports. So I put that on top. That could be down here. It could be really any place we want to put it.
Greg, when you say a sports industry professional, do you mean like working in pro sports or an actual pro?
Person like a college coach.
Okay, so I don't read that from that, and maybe Dania does, but I
Yeah,
like a
that was
sports industry
my question
professional,
too.
like to me was kind of like what we would refer to ourselves like when I worked at the NHL.
That's exactly right. That's also a sports industry professional.
So I think, but I'm curious as to what you're trying to ask there.
It's anyone who's making money, not playing, but doing other stuff in their sports.
Okay.
I think the takeaway is that it's unclear.
Yeah.
If I'm a college recruiter, am I considered a professional?
Yeah.
So like, I think that perhaps combining that with what's below, am I a player? Am I an athlete? Am I a college coach? Am I a recruiter? Like maybe make that one thing, because I was unclear about it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I can bring that down, put them all together.
Or leave it by itself, but have exactly what the definition of a sports industry professional is. Are you a coach?
Yeah.
Are you a professional player? Do you work? Like, I would separate it from the other ones, but have them then further define what a sports professional is, right? Whether it's a coach, whether it's what other things you said, coach, and what else?
Coach,
Work.
recruiter, team administrator, league administrator.
Yeah. So they could then click that, because that's going to take them to another. They're going to use the site for another as a resource for whatever they're interested in.
Right,
So,
another set of tools.
yeah. So we should probably have them define what they are.
Yeah,
at that point.
This page here.
It
well, actually,
it certainly has to be specific, because if you consider a college coach or recruiter to be an industry professional, what about a high school coach or recruiter? Do they fall into that same category? And I can think of some recreational leagues where the commissioner of an adult recreational league, even though it's adult recreational, would consider themselves an industry professional, because that's their business.
Yeah.
Managing 10,000 athletes in a recreational program.
Yeah, I think we just
So-
need to further define it and what we want it to say.
Yeah, we can have more. We can have more check boxes like this, and say here I do have the athletic trainer, all that kind of stuff here. But we can just break this out more, which is what I didn't. I was concerned about having all those check boxes way up top. But
Well, I think it's, again, like, I think
First
that
off,
John's point is kind of don't get too hung up on the formatting. Like, get the information that you want up there and let them figure out how to do it.
yeah, this is exactly, Kelly. This is a perfect example of that, where the first screen that we're looking at, where it says page 2, personal profile, you're immediately asking them to identify their role and their favorite sport. So someone's going to get confused. It's like, well, I'm not really any of these. I'm a professional recruiter, and I'm going to spend time reading and clicking all that stuff, when at the bottom of that page is a button that says, oh, if you're a college recruiter, click here instead. Like, so to me, there's two things that come out of it, and that is that you're attempting to triage someone into a particular process. That triage should be the initial thing on the page. If you're a sports industry professional, click here. And this is where the formatting thing comes in. Maybe it's not a checkbox where you save. It might just say, if you're a sports industry professional, click here. If you're a college recruiter, click here. If you're a professional team coach, click here. If you're an athletic trainer, a registered athletic trainer, click here. So let's get that triage done so that you know what profile pages to display to that person.
Even
this
athletic,
goes-
athletic directors.
Yeah, and this
yeah,
goes
exactly.
this goes to the point of, let's get that brain dump of what we're trying to do without trying to make it look like pages.
Right. So we just need to write down the list of possible check marks. So it's, player, Olympic athlete, fan, parent, recruiter, like that's what needs to go there, and then let them figure out. And I think you have to be able to check more than one box.
Yeah,
'Cause you're going to have parents and fans, and you're also going to have parents and athletes, and you're going to have whatever. But I think that this is just a brain dump of what is this person, but that's what we're trying to gather from that screen.
well, that's the whole idea of having the submit button down at the bottom, so you can fill in as much as you want or can at this point, and then you get down to here and you click that. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I had this separate, because I thought it'd be smarter to have those pro designations in a different place. But what you're saying is that we should have all those check boxes up front, and then when you click the submit button, where do you go? That's the next question.
I don't even know that it's this, like, I don't even know that it's check boxes and a submit button. It might just be text and a link that says, if you're this type of person, click here. If you're just a generic athlete, click here. You're trying to determine what profile data to display for them to fill out. So before you can display anything, like what's your favorite sport, or what role are you in that sport, or what things you're involved in, etc., you have to figure out who it is that's going to fill this out. To me, that's the top level question before you can display any questions.
So do we start off with their sport and then have them drill down that way? Or are we saying, what do you do, and then designate what sports they do, that role in? For example, I was a parent and an amateur coach of my kid's soccer team, but do I favorite sport to put down
I-
soccer to
I
get
think-
there, or am I filling out one of these things to then designate what sport I'm doing that in?
I think you have to do your role
I
and then it
think-
drops down to the sport. Because in that capacity, you could write
That's what I was thinking.
parent soccer, but then you can also check player squash,
Yeah.
sailing,
Yeah.
whatever. I think you have to kind of do
I
it
mean,
that way.
That's why I built it like this.
Or you're or you're a college recruiter,
Yeah,
And then basketball.
all sports,
Yeah.
So I think the role, and I think to simplify it, because someone has multiple roles, like I could be a college recruiter, but I'm also an athlete of my own because I play squash, but I'm also a parent because my kids play football in high school.
You have to be able to click all
So-
those things.
yeah, exactly.
I think the concept is you don't necessarily want someone to pick all their roles initially. You want them to pick, most people are coming in with a primary role in mind. If I'm a college recruiter, I'm coming in because I want to use the college recruiter functions, not the fact that I play softball on the weekends. Okay, so you may ask, what is your primary role?
I think
for
that's a good
using
idea.
this site? And drive them through whatever the profile questions are we need for that primary role. But
And then you can
then
maybe
you
add a
have the
secondary
ability-
role.
You can add additional roles. Are there,
Love it.
additional roles that you want to identify yourself with?
So you think on this first page, what we should be doing right now is just identifying the roles. Don't worry
Mhm.
about it being a checkbox or a link or whatever. Just start to dump the roles that people will probably
Because I think in order for us to
have.
do targeted marketing campaigns, in order for us to know our members, that's something we need to know. Like, I think that like if I'm trying to come up with an email campaign strategy and I don't know the breakdown of who our people are, that helps me identify it. So I think that
Right.
that's critical. And then my only other comment would be like this wellness activities, like I think if we just say wellness activities, people know what it is. I think in almost further defining it this early on, I do think we should define it at some point, but I think drilling down this early on is unnecessary. But that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be on the first page, maybe, right? Yeah, it's.
Yeah, like I think at some point you can check the things you're interested in, but I just think like if you want to just check wellness activities, like that sums up fitness to me.
Well, there are a lot of us who just do fitness stuff. They don't actually play sports.
Right. So that's that person. Again, that's giving us a nugget of information that we know about.
Right. So we're just gonna have up here participate in wellness activities and let them click that if they're not any of the above.
Again, it's kind of like you're building this profile. To me, it's kind of like this is just a gateway to ask more questions later. But I think it's that's what you're there for. You're not a parent, you're not a whatever, like maybe you just do yoga or just do Pilates or just do spin or bar or whatever. But that's your defining thing, your wellness activity participant.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think it should be really simple. It's just bullets,
Totally.
right? We're just creating bullets of different roles. You call them roles, but they're really interests, right? What's my interest in on this site? I'm interested in recruiting a player. I'm interested in finding a yoga class or a cycle group in my community or whatever, but whatever it is, right now we're just making bullets of different interests. So they should
I mean,
be
I'm not,
very clear.
to be the devil's advocate here, I'm like, why do you even segregate sports from wellness activities? Why
I don't
can't
think you do.
say, what's your favorite activity? Football, tennis, yoga, meditation, basketball, spin.
Yeah.
Like, do they have to be segregated?
No, because I
Maybe.
think it's just you're staying in shape, right? Like that's obviously more towards an adult. Like I would have a hard time, like I do like 7 sports at this point. Like I'd have a really hard time clicking what I do. I think I would just want to say like fitness, like
Right.
Right. But
Right.
the problem, there are two things there. One is we sort of need to know how we're going to guide you through the site.
but right. But I think that if I was signing up for this right now, I would love to put player enthusiast is probably, if I'm looking at this, what I would check.
Right.
And then somehow after, I have to be able to check golf, tennis, paddle, softball, hockey.
Or after that, you're gonna, that second line where I play just for fun. Maybe that should be the subcategory to player enthusiast. I put that there because I was just thinking there are so many people who just like, I want to go fishing, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't want to worry about pro bass fishing rules, you know?
To me, it's a little confusing. I just think player enthusiast, like you're a player, you
I can
participate,
easily cover everything.
or you're enthusiast, you sometimes participate, and you don't really care about the, being, on a team or anything. It's just a hobby,
And
right?
that's why the other thing might just be to start off with what sports I play, what activities I do. And then you can come back and say, I'm a player, or I'm a pro, or a fan, or a parent, and take it from there. Let them fill
Yeah,
those
I
in
mean,
per
one
sport.
one of the things, Greg, that I'm concerned about is that the way you have the roles listed there,
Yeah.
they're completely different than the roles that we've asked the developers to create.
Mm.
So my concern is that there's not going to be a one-to-one relationship that way. And if we go back because we feel that these are the roles that we want,
They have to link up.
Developers are going to have to change things. And I'm trying to look through my notes now for what those roles were, but I believe Kelly and Leslie, you were involved in that conversation when we defined them, that there were like 11 roles.
There were 11.
That
You
we
need like
created.
administrative, like college, like high school AD, college AD. You need like an,
Yep.
like
And they need to be the same.
Yeah, administrator role, or, yeah, I mean, it's not hard. Once you put our brains together, you make a bullet list of all the things we want to do. I just like the first two. I wonder if those should be combined. Like, to me, I don't know. I mean, you could be a player and you could be a pro player. You could be a player in middle school. You have the different degrees, but it's just like you play. You're a fan, you watch. You're a parent, you watch. Like it's not that hard. I don't think.
Here, do you see it? It should be on the page now. Do you see it?
No, we're looking at, okay.
Oh, let me get it.
But John, I think you had a good point. Like, I think we already defined those bullets and they
Yeah,
should
I mean,
link up.
here, I found, and I'm not sure that this was the final list we created, but just for example, yeah, that's it. There was athlete, professional, coach, parent, recruiter, athletic trainer, personal trainer, or what we're now calling a fitness trainer, team manager, resource manager, a league administrator, and a fan. Those were the roles that we defined.
I think these look perfect.
Right, yeah.
The only one missing from that list is a fitness trainer, which would
Okay.
be your yoga instructor, a personal trainer, that kind of thing. So
What
that's
if
the
we
only thing
did
missing.
coach/trainer? Or we have,
I would-
those are actually probably two different roles. So we
Yeah.
probably do want to,
Yeah,
we have athletic
Now,
trainer.
it's totally conceivable as we go back to the profile page where someone has to select them, that perhaps being a professional, or I'm sorry, being a coach or a recruiter are going to take you to the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so in that case, you might say coach/recruiter is one of your options. But I think that we need to stick to these definitions, regardless of what word we display on the screen to the user. But they need to marry up one to one.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
yeah.
to
Yeah, because I
this-
thought
this group of things.
Yeah, I just mentioned, I thought we were further along than what we're trying to do now, but apparently we have been. Apparently this has been discussed in terms of the roles we want to highlight. So we just have to go with these. If this is what we presented to the developers, we can't reinvent the wheel. Let's go with what we've already discussed.
Yeah.
So that narrows it
Yeah,
down
and I
right there
forget-
for
I
us all.
I forget exactly who was involved in that conversation, but I think it was Greg, Kelly, Leslie. I think you were involved to some extent as well when we kind of defined these things.
Yeah, I think you
Now,
select
that does-
these and then the next prompt is somehow the role, then you marry up the sport with the role. So
And you-
if someone clicks athlete, parent, trainer, the next time somehow they're prompted so that their athlete is the 5 sports they play, they coach hockey, and they're a parent of a soccer player.
Yeah, I would caution and say that our best approach for simplicity, because someone that comes in who really fulfills 4 different roles for different reasons, okay? You're going to pick 4 roles, and then you're going to say, okay, well, what sports are you for each role?
Yeah.
So now it's the way you have to display and present that info to that user is going to become convoluted. So I think the concept is, if we want to think of this as a wizard process, that you're guiding the user through answering these questions, you're going to ask, what is your primary role?
Okay.
And then you would say, what is the primary sport for this role?
Agreed.
And then you go through the sequence of data collection. And at the very end, when they go to save it or say that they're finished, you'll say, do you want to add any more sports? Or is there any other sports that you're a recruiter for?
Got
and
it.
They could pick another sport. And once they say, no, there's no more sports, you then revert back to the upper level and say, are there any more roles that you fulfill? And if
Okay,
they say
so-
no, you're done. And if they say yes, you say, okay, what other roles?
Why don't you go back to sport by sport and say, in this sport, do you do anything else but play your sport? Are you also an administrator? Place items for that. And then just go to sport by sport with the ones they said they were interested in.
I think you have to organize it by role. There has to be a hierarchy.
I think
Role,
you
and
gotta
then
start by
go
role.
down to details. Like by role, that's how you have to think about how, like, as columns, like how you're going to organize it. It's role, right? And then you're going to go down and support the detail. If you do it
And
by
I think-
sport,
I
then
think for
you
sport-
can't program it both ways, right? It has to be.
And I think
I
for
mean, think
sports,
of it
you
as-
definitely have to write in your sport, because we're not going to allow them to see a Dropbox of 100 sports, correct? They're going to have to say what sport. Like if I'm a parent and I have one son that plays lacrosse, one son that plays soccer, one son that plays, like, are we going to allow them to pick a sport, or are they going to write in the sport? Because there's a lot of sports out there. That's a lot of
Well,
options.
having a drop down with 200 things is cumbersome, right?
Mm.
Right. So,
So-
will they write?
You would have a free form text field where
Okay.
they'll start to type. And if they type TEN, the names of tennis and anything
Ah.
else that starts with TEN will show.
Okay, great.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay, so that's the kind of effect, in order so they don't have to scroll a long
Yeah.
list, or
Yeah.
you don't have 500 check boxes, one checkbox for each sport.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think to Greg, go back to Greg's last question, was you could say, okay, well, I'm a recruiter, and then say for what sports, and if you want them to pick 3 or 4 sports, okay, and maybe you're a college recruiter and you handle 12 sports, that, like, the idea that you're going to accumulate all of those things becomes a complex set of pages. I think and you're going to have a programmatic method to say, okay, well, they're a recruiter for 4 sports. Which one are you going to have them fill out first? So we're going to have some algorithm that says, okay, when they pick 4 sports for this role, this is the order which the sports are going to show up. It can't be random. There has to be some algorithm that's in the system. So you might start asking them about sports, which are their lowest priority. So I think to guide the user through and the most effective experience, and because completing this profile could be a long, somebody might not be able to fill it out in one day, right? So let's not have to bookmark, where are they? They picked this role with 4 sports and they got through the second sport halfway. Let's just say, here's my role. Here's the first sport that I want to associate myself with in that role. guide them through the questions. When they are done, we say, are you a recruiter for any other sport? And continue through that sport.
Okay.
If they say no, then you say, are there any other roles that you go back up that hierarchy?
Perfect. I think that sounds great.
Organized by role, that's the way to do it.
So just not to be a
Yes.
total
Yes.
type A pain in the ass, but are we taking notes out of this conversation and presenting it to I just want to make sure we're not losing all of this discussion.
I'm trying to take as many notes as possible, and I'll try.
Okay, let me know if I can help. I just feel like you guys are talking to the developers more frequently, so I just want to make sure we're just not losing. I think this is really helpful conversation.
And
So-
under, just to follow up, John, like under trainer on this list on the screen, like athletic trainer, you could be a fitness trainer or athletic trainer, right? They're two different.
Well,
Athletic trainer
actually,
is a medically
fitness
trained
trainer,
professional.
fitness trainer was a different role. It was
Right.
distinct from athletic trainer.
Right, I know, I'm just saying, like, how do you would put trainer here and then have those two different roles? I mean, and have like a sub role?
Good point. Good point.
I think that
'Cause this is
based
just
on what
one trainer.
Greg,
What about all the guys that work in the gyms that are personal trainers, right? Or, Pilates trainer.
yeah, and that was my question to Greg. And based on the way he's conveyed those definitions to me, is that an athletic trainer is the guy that's on the sideline
Right,
that will manage a broken leg or a serious injury to somebody during a competition or something. It's a far more medically trained professional role than a fitness trainer. A fitness trainer could be just somebody who works at the gym and happens to teach you how to lift weights.
right.
They may not have any kind of certification or medical training or anything. They just might be, here's how you lift weights and whatever, and gain strength. So to answer your question about combining roles, when I say, what role are you? And we want the member to identify their role, their primary role, it depends on what questions you're going to ask them later. So maybe an athletic trainer and a fitness trainer could be combined if it leads you to the same type of questions. Now, I don't think it will, because a fitness trainer, you're going to say, well, what activities or sports are you a fitness trainer for? Yoga, meditation, CrossFit, weightlifting, strength, whatever the disciplines are. But an athletic trainer is not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm an athletic trainer for yoga. So it sounds like they would be distinct, but maybe not. Like that's the extent of, my knowledge about what these guys do.
Well, I know a
But
lot of
a
athletic
coach-
trainers, and I have to say the athletic trainers are pretty snobby about being ATs. If they see trainers, they're like, I'm not just a trainer, and they won't even click it.
Right.
Athletic trainer is someone who's trained for years to be one. And it's like saying, I put Band-Aids on people. So, doctors don't do that. So I'm not going to click it. But if you have athletic trainer and then fitness or class trainer, I think you're covering the gamut of what they would call trainers. So obviously you have to keep them separate.
In a scenario, for example, a coach and a recruiter, maybe you can combine, because it's going to lead you to very similar questions in your profile setup. I could see where team manager and group admin might be combined with commissioner and league admin, because it seems like you're going to ask very similar questions. Maybe I'm mistaken about that, but that to me is how you would determine whether or not you can group roles together in getting a member to select their role.
So I think, John, when we're going through the facility resource manager, you're talking about scheduling a rec center, and there are 7 different areas there where they have to schedule. And then they have 7 different or 20 different groups of members, like adult softball, youth softball, adult fastball, youth fastball. So you're dealing with more organizational stuff rather than being a commissioner or a league admin, they're much more concerned with like what teams are under them and what season it is and what teams are playing, and then making sure that the budgets are all working.
And it may not make sense at some point from a marketing perspective. We really want to know what that member's specific role is. So if you do combine roles at this point, at some point later, you're going to say, okay, well, you picked the coach/recruiter role. Well, now we really need to identify which one you are. So you're going to ask them that question again.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it seems that whatever the 11 roles are, remember, fitness trainer is not in that list that we're looking at right now. But in that list of 11, it would seem that you would put all of them in there. If they need a little bit of textual context to kind of clarify what exactly that role means to someone, then we do that. But
yeah, because I can tell you, an NBA recruiter is not a coach. So that's an example of what you're talking about. That will then have to be kind of distinguished and
right. So if we were to lump those two roles together, at some point later, we're going to have to say, okay, well, are you really a coach or really a recruiter? And it doesn't make sense to ask that question again when you could have gotten it the first time.
When you say coach, then they're going to click, I'm a coach. Okay. You could be a college coach. You could be a high school coach. You could be a little league coach. You could be, Pee-wee soccer coach, right? Trying to get your Pee-wee schedule up with a little 5-year-olds to start soccer. Like it's so many different coaches. That's the next link, right? Then you're going to just drive it down.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know where in the hierarchy you would identify at what level. Is it professional? Is it college? Is it semi-pro? Is it high school? Is it, youth?
Yeah.
Is it adult recreational? Like, I don't know where that fits in a hierarchy, and I'm not bound to really guess, but there is a hierarchy starting with the role that you fulfill.
Right.
And from there, it would seem to be a sport. Maybe it's the level that you're at. Is it college? Is it pro? Is it semi-pro?
Yeah,
and then from there, it might be sport.
yeah.
Yeah.
The level is a good
Pro college youth, right? Pro college youth. That's what else. There's no.
Well, I think there's high school, and I think if you're looking at gymnastics, you're different. I mean, most of your Olympic gymnastics, who are the best in the world, are barely out of middle school.
Yeah, they're 16.
Right. So, well, there's 13 and 14-year-old Olympians.
Amateur.
Right?
Think of another term in there. Yeah.
So, is a level, do you include, like, if you're going to say professional, college, high school, youth, adult recreational, do you include Olympian as a totally separate thing?
Sure.
In any case, so there is this hierarchy, and it really sounds like before we can build out these profile pages, as Greg is starting to do, that we need to understand better what this hierarchy is and how we guide the user through that hierarchy. And of all of us here, I'm the last person to really give guidance on what that hierarchy should be. But from a logical perspective, from what I'm hearing, it really sounds like you go from role to sport,
Right,
into detail from there. Now, where the level, professional, college, et cetera, falls in, I don't know. You guys are much more knowledgeable on how that would fit from a logical perspective when somebody goes to answer these questions.
I know for my training business, we just use beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
Anya, you might be the perfect person to kind of tackle this project.
Yeah, I mean, we just simply say, are you a beginner? We know what that is in basketball. Are you an intermediate, meaning high school, and advanced, professional? So if you want to keep it as that simple, I mean, those three would definitely determine the level of experience.
Well, you could be a beginner at the high school level and you could be a beginner at the college level.
But it's your
So-
level. It's not where you are. It's your definition of
My
your skill
ability,
level.
ability, not
Your
age,
skill.
right?
Yeah, your skill level.
Okay,
going
so
to college
skill
player
level,
that's
but not-
saying they're a beginner.
I think Leslie's comment earlier was more towards what, level is redundant, but she was trying to identify the difference between a professional, a semi-pro, a college, a high school, a youth level of sport.
I think
Which is-
particularly in coaching, that you can break out a few levels there. And what I did in my thing is that I said, okay, if I'm a parent, what I'm doing is I'm going to get my kid to get their equipment, first of all. Secondly, get them to practice into games. Third, I got to take care of them, getting them psyched to play, and then massaging their ego or congratulating them on doing well. So sports psychology comes into there and other stuff that isn't really something a high school or college coach would get involved with. So what I did is I said, okay, you're a parent. You might also be an amateur coach, like a coach of a little league, as you said before, Leslie. So if you're an amateur coach, you sort of have to play all those roles. Your parent, your den mother, you taking care of the kids when they scrape their knees, all that kind of stuff you have to be involved with. So that's radically different from a professional or a college coach. So that's why I sort of broke it into, I said, okay, if you're a parent, you're going to have the same skills as if you're a amateur coach of Little League. So that's why I did that. So I added that to, say parent / amateur coach, because that's, they're the same tools that you're going to need. And
And
resources.
can I ask like a kind of, maybe we went over this, I don't recall, like a technical question. So let's say I'm a coach or an administrator, right, at whatever level, and I want to download my schedule. I go through all this, and then I want to get to my team page, right, for my team or my school, even if I'm a high school AD or something. I'm going to have the technology. I'm going to download my schedule, right? We can chat, team chat. It's all going to happen. Like you can chat just like Sports U chats. We're going to have our team page where it's going to be communication, either chatting and messaging, or we can do, look at schedules and exchange, communicate that way. That's all going to be how it's going to work like that, right?
Yeah, and upload pictures and videos as well. There, yeah, and find out.
Inbox. Then you'll have an inbox. Coaches will have an inbox. UBsports will have an inbox. Their messages, and then right, and they'll have.
Yeah, and this, like the calendar on your group page will identify all of the events, the schedule, if you will, for that particular group or team. But your own personal calendar would have all of your events, regardless of what team they're for.
Yeah.
So if you're an athletic director, when you go to your personal page, your calendar is going to have, every sporting event that's currently scheduled, presumably. That would be baseball, football, basketball, hockey, tennis, what have you. Okay. But if you look at the schedule that's on a specific group page or team page, when you view it, it's only going to have things that are relevant to that specific team.
Right.
When you're on your own personal page, you will also have the ability, since it's going to show you, like for an athletic director in that case, I'm going to have a schedule, a calendar of 24 different sports. That's overwhelming for me to look at. Maybe I'm only interested in one sport. And, multiple teams could be associated with that sport because I might have a varsity and a junior varsity team, correct? Or I might have a men's team and a boys and a girls team, et cetera. So I would be able to filter and say, here's my personal calendar. I have 2,000 scheduled events across 24 teams in 12 sports. Well, I'm going to be able to filter and say, just show me this one sport. Just show me this one team, et cetera. So I'll be able to filter those. Being able to download or print that schedule, I think, is not really within the scope of what we're building right now. Printing, maybe. But that's certainly something that we're looking at doing. We would be able to get done in the future.
Let's say like it's a school district and I'm an AD and I want to, they all talk to each other, right? They have to coordinate schedules. And so you have an AD, chat, right? They have an AD messaging system where they can all get together by school district across America and they can have their own space and exchange messages and have another inbox if they're a parent on their team to know when little Sally has to go to her game, multiple inboxes, right? And then it's how's that organized?
No, I mean, you as a user would have one inbox. And if you're having conversations with other athletic directors, I mean, it would be just like your own personal email where, okay, here's a conversation in email that has, 12 other athletic directors from the colleges in my league.
Yeah. So like as a parent, you get the parent stuff in the same inbox as you would get on your team updates for team communication for your child as you would as a recruiter or an athletic director or whatever, anything, right? It's
You'll
all
get invites that will show up in the invite section of your inbox. And are we going to have the invites separate from the inbox, or are they going to be the same thing?
There's one inbox, and it will allow you to filter on some specific things. Like you'll be able to just display invites to various things, invites to different groups, group invites. You'll also be able to kind of filter it so it displays just event invitations. There will be a way to filter down to friend requests. There will also be a way to filter parental type emails where you have to approve things or do something that's parental related is why you got the message. Those were the primary subgroups of messages that you would be able to filter by, but you would be able to custom filter based on subject, potentially based on team, etc. We're not building out an extensive filter mechanism yet. So one of the things that I would hope that we can do is as we go through and we design the emails that get sent. So when somebody sends an email to invite you to a group or a team or invites you to an event, somebody, one of us, has to write the copy, the text that's going to be in that email. Okay, so there'll be a template. And that template will then, when you create the message, will be personalized with the name of the event, the date of the event, the team name, what have you, whatever specific information. But the subject line that you see when you first look at your inbox should be crafted such that it's easy for me to sort or search the subject based on a team name. Yeah. So for example, the subject of a team invitation might say team invite, : and then some information after it. If it's an event invite, it might say event invitation, : with the name of the event or the date or something. So when we craft the text of these emails and the subject lines of these emails, there needs to be some thought around it to make it easy for the members to find those until we can get a very extensive filtering mechanism.
Yeah, I think that's huge because I know I get the sports U because for the crew and I only have it for crew. So when I get that sports U, I know it's crew, but I can see if you have multiple roles, it could be a parent, a coach, a recruiter, an enthusiast, a fan, a committee member, checking scores at the local high school, and it could be a mess, right? And that, I mean, it's I think the streamlining it somehow to help the user navigate if there's multiple roles would be huge, right? Because otherwise it might be, I don't know, confusing for them.
Yeah, the one thing that Greg and I were very specific about was it was initially kind of scoped out that we would have 2 inboxes, one for all your invitations and one for every other kind of message. And the decision that we made was to consolidate and have one and only one inbox. And the primary reason for that is because if I get a push notification on my phone or I get an email notification that says you have an email at UBsports about this, you don't want that user to have to say, okay, well, which mailbox is that in? Is it in this inbox, or is it in this event inbox, or is it in this friend request? Like you don't want them to have multiple places to go for communications to
Yeah, it'll
them
be
within
it'll
the
be
site.
confusing.
I agree. Yeah. I'm just thinking like,
So that's where,
yeah, go ahead.
that's where the concept of having these basic filters initially. So you go to your inbox, you see every message, okay, top to bottom. Then if you think about the filters as tabs, I'll be in my inbox. Maybe I click a tab for friend requests,
It's like
and
windows,
all I'll see are
right?
friend
Yeah,
requests.
it's like a window tab and you're going to get content based organized.
Right.
That'd be
And
part.
we won't use a tab design. I'm only explaining it as tabs because ultimately, if you want to start filtering it by more than 4 or 6 things, you can't put that many tabs on your screen or on your phone display. So there will be a way for you to filter and say, show me just friend requests, whether it's a tab, whether it's with a drop down, whether it's a checkbox. Like think about Amazon. You search for a product and on the left-hand column, there's checkboxes. Well, do you want new or used? Do you want it from household, like home goods category, or from hardware category? Do you want something that has 8 parts, or do you want something that has 20? Like, so you'll have filtering mechanisms, not really tabs, but the tabs gives you the metaphor that when you click this filter mechanism, you're only going to see stuff related to that, which will help sort the stuff and make it easier for you to find things.
Okay.
All right, so Greg, what else can be helpful for us to keep going on this for you guys?
Really, that's, I guess the next step is, okay, so how do we get from you're filling out your roles, how do you get people back to where they left off in this? That's an email that comes another week later. It says, hey, you left off with your roles as a in tennis. Now, what about the other sports you mentioned? But are we even, see what happened here is that we got away from that because we said what we care about is the roles. So
I think our next step is we need to identify the hierarchy of information first. Okay, so it seems like we're all in agreement that the role is really at the top of the hierarchy. So that hierarchy needs to be flushed out, I think, before we can do anything else. So we need to say, what would be the next step? After you say that my primary role is a recruiter, what's the next thing you want to know? What the sport or activity is, okay? Perhaps before you ask what sport or activity, maybe the second level is what level do you do this for? Is it professional, semi-pro, college, high school, youth, adult recreational, etc.? Maybe that's the next step. And then after that comes the sport. Okay. I don't know what other data or questions or demographic info you need, but I believe that we need to flush out that hierarchy first before we can figure out what are the questions we're going to be asking for each of these. You know, at the end of the hierarchy, if you think about it as a decision tree, you have one thing at top, then you have a few things underneath, and then you have a few more things under each of those. And by the time you get to the bottom, there could be 10,000 things at the bottom level. Maybe there's only 100.
Could I recommend that we maybe split up these roles among ourselves and have each person kind of build the hierarchy for each role, because they're not going to be universal, obviously. Each role will have different, kind of prongs. So why don't we split up? Like I could take athlete, professional coach, Leslie could take parent, I mean, you know what I mean? I think if we kind of give, split them up amongst ourselves and develop that hierarchy for what that role would kind of break down into, that would be probably better than us trying to make something that's universal for every role, because there's not. You know, there's different things that we can think of that people may want from out of this role, and then build it that way. How about that?
I think that sounds great. And what if we came to Monday's 11 o'clock Zoom, prepared to explain or present?
Yeah.
So Dania, which ones do you want to take?
I would take athlete, professional, coach, and recruiter.
Okay.
That's my lane.
First of all,
I could do
clarifying
that.
that professional means professional player.
Well, that's the question. Is professional could be professional player. It could be athletic director. It could be, right? It could be.
Yeah, that's why she's taking it.
It's so many different things that it could be, I would think.
Leslie, do you want to do parent?
Yeah, what else could I do? I can do,
What about facility? Wait a minute. What about commissioner and
like
administrator?
the parent, maybe one of the administrators, that's good. Like I could
Yeah.
I could do
And
one of
then, Greg, I know you have a lot of knowledge about the trainers. So can you take athletic trainer?
And fitness trainer.
Yeah, I'll do the athletic trainer and fitness trainer.
Okay.
It's
And
going.
do you also want to take facility and resource manager? Because I feel
Absolutely.
like that kind of lumps into that group too.
Yeah,
Me? Oh, who's doing that?
No, Greg.
Okay.
I'll take those three. I'll take athletic and fitness trainer and facilities. That makes
Hey, Greg, well, I was thinking about team manager and group admin, because obviously I have been a head coach.
Oh, do that.
I know, but does somebody want to take professional then, or do you want me to do team manager and group admin too? Because I could do that. I could do it too.
I mean, honestly, Dania, as many as you're willing to take, I feel like you check a lot of these boxes.
No,
Yeah.
okay,
I think
here's
whoever-
the situation. What falls under professional? If you look at all these things, commissioner, league admin,
Yes.
Team manager, facilities resource manager, basically all of those things fall under professional, as opposed to professional player.
I almost feel like John's point, like the team manager / group admin and then commissioner, league admin, maybe somehow we combine those. I don't know. Like, I don't know if they
I
need to
think
be.
we can combine a couple of these things.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
The admin ones could be like some kind of, you're starting at the top, right? And you're going to go down and break it down. Maybe it's just kind of some kind of administrative role, and then you go down from there.
But
So
even
there's probably
even
a-
athlete can be
think-
then broken out to professional and or the bottom one, fan, sports enthusiast.
And I think as long as we keep in mind that from a demographic and a marketing perspective, we need to pigeonhole every user
Yep.
into these
One of these.
distinct items, even though the hierarchy and the way they flow through their profile based on that selection could be combined. So yes, you could combine commissioner, league admin with team manager and group admin, but we're still going to display them as individual items for the person to select.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, because we want the user to self-identify one-to-one or one-to-many, that we want to know which specifically they are, because we will be targeting messages and content differently to a team manager versus a commissioner.
Correct.
John, why
So
can't we do that
combining
in
them-
JavaScript? And like when someone clicks professional, you have it drops down to 3 other check boxes. I'm a facilities manager. I'm a athletic director.
It seems like professionals shouldn't, like, I think what's confusing about this list.
But that's design oriented. Sorry to cut you off, Kelly, but
Yeah,
that's
but you're right.
design
We're
oriented.
getting convoluted here.
The information should be, if they pick professional, the next question we ask is, okay, are you this, or this?
Right.
Let's not worry if it's a drop down and if it happens
Yes, let's not
instantaneously
get-
on that page. Let's
Yeah.
get away from that concept. Let's forget that stuff.
I think with Kelly, I thought Kelly was going to say, but it looked like she was going to say, isn't professional a subdivision under athlete? Is that what you're
Right. So like, here's where I think that this list is both roles. This can be consolidated. And so I think that's what we're kind of trying to tackle here. So I think going back to let's take away, and again, John's point of being a brain dump, and let's not worry about drop boxes or checks or whatever. Let's come up with the tree. So Dania, can you remind us of which ones you're taking?
Athlete. And I think to your point,
Pro.
there could be an athletic, you could be a professional under athlete, but you could also be an AD, an SWA under professional. So I think they should be separate, but it's the same terminology. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
means it's
Complete agreement.
defined differently. The professional athlete is defined differently from a professional that's an SWA or an athletic director or a commissioner. So definitely separated. But athlete, professional, coach, recruiter.
Okay, so also it'd be athlete, professional athlete, and Olympic athlete.
Yeah, she's
Yes.
going to define all this, but it's just trying
be
to
under
divide up
athlete.
who's doing
Mhm.
what.
Because really,
Right.
professional encompasses those roles plus all the admin stuff. Those are all professionals too, right? You're a professional if you're an AD.
Yeah, so it's separate.
Those
Yeah.
three things are like really kind of overlapping. So just, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
think the
and if
whole
it's-
point of this is we're all going to do a brain dump on what these categories are, and then it's going to become clear that there's overlap and we can narrow it from there.
Yeah, and it'll be clear that there's stuff that's missing.
Right.
that
Yes.
We omitted something.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
And-
Who's taking fan enthusiast community? Should I take that? Who's doing?
Sure. Why don't you take that? I definitely think you should take parent.
Yeah, okay.
What about, I think both you and Dania should do team manager and group admin, because I think they're two different things. And I'd be curious to see how you guys approach that.
Okay.
Greg, I think you need to do athletic trainer / fitness trainer.
Trainer. Yeah.
I think you get that really well. And
Kelly,
then
do you think you with fan and community member would be more in your role since you did a lot of that with the professional
Yeah.
teams that you work
Kelly,
with?
help with that. Help me with that. We can both do that and like maybe like see how we end up.
What do you
Perfect.
think?
Yeah, I'll take fan sports enthusiasts community. And then I think, Greg, do you want to, because I think you've had conversations with the facilities and resource managers. Do you want to do that one too?
Sure.
And athletic training, right?
And then John, you're just going to keep us all in line.
I have plenty
Oh.
else to do. I will be able to provide feedback and input on commissioner and league admin.
Perfect.
Because I did run an adult rec softball league for 25 years.
Okay, great.
Oh, you know who else
I
we
can
should pull in
provide.
there? We should try to get Roger involved in that question.
Yep.
Well, you know what? Let's be cautious about pulling anyone else in.
We
right
just
at
don't want
this
to waste any
moment,
time.
Yeah.
Because Roger will not have the background information that we've just discussed for an hour and a half
That's true.
to get to this point. Okay, he's going to be like, oh, well, you're missing these roles, and why don't we ask? Like,
Yeah, good point.
All right.
So let's
like,
everyone's
if
got
you
their
wrote
homework
someone else
assignment.
in,
And I think that dump any information you guys want to dump onto Slack. I think we have a channel for all of this feedback already. So I think that if you guys want to just at some point before 11 o'clock on Monday, either upload a document, however you want to do it, just as long as, again, it's like to John's point, like this is just a brain dump and then we'll figure out how to organize it.
yeah, and once,
Mm-hmm.
After Monday, once we kind of get together, there'll be some group feedback about the various things. There might be some changes that we make to some of the proposals, et cetera. And then we'll come up with like a final flow hierarchy and how it works. And then we can rope in and present it to Bill, who happened to not be here,
Perfect.
and Roger, or whoever else. Okay, and maybe even present it to people outside of our team to
To see
say,
what it
well,
says.
okay, you're a coach. Does this make sense to you?
Cool.
That kind of thing, get some outside feedback. So that I think is going to be a good approach to doing it. And that's how we rope in people like Bill and Roger, because if we ask them to get involved now, they're an hour and a half behind us
I agree.
as far as understanding what we're attempting to accomplish here.
Okay, I just added a new channel on our UBsports page. It's called Roles-Development.
Perfect.
Greg, can you cut and paste from that document those 10 roles
I'll add
and
that.
add the 11 and add fitness trainer to the list and just put them in there so that everybody can see them in that spot, what the 11 roles are.
Right. Okay, sure, of course.
You know, and as we go through this process, we may discover, you know, we're saying, okay, well, what exactly is a professional? If we discover that there's a role that we're missing
Right.
or needs to be broken out as a 12th role or something, there's no problem really changing it at this point. It's just that these 11 are the ones that the developers are expecting us to be utilizing.
Right.
That's kind of what
Totally.
the team came up with. So don't be afraid if you, as you go through this, if you feel that there's a role that really is distinct from all these other things or needs to be broken out. We can do that if you're convinced and have a strong enough case that that's what we need to do.
Okay.
Sounds great. And it sounds like everyone has their marching orders.
You do.
I didn't expect to be this involved in the conversation. So I hope I was helpful.
I don't know if any of us did, John.
What's really interesting is that we're going to get down to a point where we say, okay, you know, John, what you really brought out in this conversation is that we have to approach each of these roles with a different hierarchy in mind. Like, is it the sports that we care about, or is the role, the actual activities that we're going to be doing in this role? And that's going to be interesting. What my only challenge I have in this thing is there's going to come a point where after like 20 minutes, 30 minutes of doing this stuff, the person who's filling it out, especially if they're just a player or an enthusiast, is going to say, you know, take me to UBsports. I want to see who won.
If people are filling this out for 20 minutes, we've lost them already.
Yeah, but
This is
remember,
going to be like a quick.
but remember, for them to get into this part of their profile, they have to voluntarily click it. We're not forcing them into this
Right.
section. So if they get partway through it, they just save and finish later.
Right.
You know, and then they can come back and do it later.
Yeah,
And we
can't
have a
people
little
filling things
indicator
out
that
for
says your
20 minutes.
profile is only 27% complete or something, you know, and then we
Right.
barrage them with junk email that says, finish your profile, you know, whatever we want to do. So let's keep in mind that this is a voluntary process that the person is going to be going through. You know, if I'm just a fan of professional football, there's not very many questions I'm going to be answering. I'm not going to be telling you how high I can jump and how fast I can run. You know, so like in the case of a fan, that's no big deal. In the case of an athlete, I play softball. I'm not going to tell you how fast I can run down to first base. I'm not going to tell you, you know, how tall I am or how many RBIs I have, because I play recreational softball. So I might identify that I'm a softball player. And when you start asking me those details, I'm out of there. And I'm back to UBsports looking at the videos I want to see.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
this is a purely voluntary exercise. The athlete that wants to get recruited is going to be, oh, that only took me 20 minutes. That's great. That only took me 2 hours. That's great. Let's hope I get recruited.
And it's at least 17-year-old who wants to fill out like, hey, I did so great last week in this game. This is the URL to watch the game and that kind of stuff. They're going to fill that out. But you're right. Everyone else is just going to say, I want to watch my videos.
Yeah. So this is not a forced exercise. This is not what they're going to be presented with when they verify their email and we ask for mandatory data, like what's your name, date of birth. We're not forcing them into this profile at that point. We may suggest that they fill out their profile, but we're not going to force them in. It's totally voluntary.
But let's say you're like an adult, you know, player, right? In like an adult league, or you are part of a group of people that go cycling, and you want to show a video because you videoed your cycling trip to France or something, and you can post it up here. You'd have to complete that profile to do that, right? You couldn't upload videos or unless you've completed your profile.
Oh, I'd be able to upload my videos.
So your page is your page, and it has those capabilities to upload videos and photos and that kind of stuff.
You have to have the basic profile filled out to do that, right?
The initial profile where you sign in and you say what your email address is and all that kind of stuff, that's a given. But you become a, what do we call that, member? They're an official member or something. What are we calling that?
Verified?
Like they're verified.
Active, it was verified and active.
Active. It was active.
Yeah, verified and active. So that, as long as that happens, I can be putting videos up. Maybe when I get into the profile details that, I play this sport, I'm an athlete, whatever, and I want someone who's recruiting me to know that there's a video of me in this game where I played, I had a triple double or whatever you call it in basketball, right? Like maybe there's a place in the profile that says relevant videos. So I would link to a video that I posted on my profile that calls that out within the recruiting module.
Yeah, you have to have a link of everything, a link of
Right, but posting the video does not require, you could come in and never identify a role. Well, there is a way for you when you initially verify to say that my primary role is this, my primary sport is this, but that's optional. So it's totally conceivable that someone comes in, never identifies themselves as anything, in which case the system will default and consider them a fan of no particular.
And they could create like a group of people, like whatever role that is, like cycling or whatever, right? They'd have to create their own little group, and they could post videos and have that group. But you also could just come on and post a video for your neighbor and just completely as a one-off, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. Is there any way, are these profiles public? Could anyone go onto UBsports and look at somebody else's profile, or do they have to give permission for it to be public or private? Is there an option?
If they're an adult,
I would imagine
it can be seen by anybody. If they're a youth, they have to get approved by the parent under a certain age, and we think that's 17 to be seen by anybody. The parent can say, anyone can see my kid's profile, I don't care. Or they could say, I have to approve any visibility of my child.
Yeah.
So there's no way an adult could have a private profile.
Well, I think that there's a couple things. One, I think
Good question.
that you should be able to control whether your profile is public or not. Okay, where anybody can view it. Now, I believe that you should have to log in to be able to view people's profiles, any of the details. One of the things we don't want is you don't want someone's profile that has the city I'm in being accessible to someone who's not logged in, who's not a member, because then Google will start picking up people's profiles, and we don't want that, right? So you have to be logged in to view people's profiles. Now, certain elements of your profile, such as your profile picture and your name, would be relatively public, because if you go to post a video, it has to be associated with someone. So it would have your screen name or your real name and your profile picture potentially, okay? So that information will be out there. If I see someone who posted a video or wrote a blog and I see their name and I click on it, it's gonna load their profile. If I'm not their friend, maybe I see a very small subset of data. My name, my location, maybe my age, and that's it. But if I am their friend and we've accepted a friend request with each other, then maybe I can see, here's the sports I play. Here's the roles I play. I doubt that you show statistics and things that are used for recruiting, right? That would, I think, always be private.
And that sort of negates the value of the recruiting app. If they
No, because a recruiter can search on that data, and a recruiter will be able to see that data
exactly.
in a different way. I mean, a recruiter is not going to load 500 student athletes profiles to look at their
Right.
data. They're
Right.
going to want it in a report that they can download in a spreadsheet or something.
Daniel, are there rules about in the NCAA and other organizations like that, what a coach can see when they're looking through social media? Like they,
No, it's the rules are more so generated around contact. So you can look up anybody's stuff, but you can't contact them until a certain time or a certain age.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest thing. It's contact, whether it's, you know, through any social media, through the mail, through phone calls. The rules are more so generated towards the contact, not necessarily viewing information.
Yeah, they
okay.
can look on your social media stuff and never talk to you, and that's perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, it's just the contact being made. So they probably won't be able to send you. I think on Twitter you can like a recruit's post, but you can't reply.
Yeah.
So
I have a quick question, John, just to follow up. So like, let's say you're part of this cycling group, that's your thing. And you have like, it's a Facebook situation, you have a friend and they're kind of either in your group or they're in your world or somehow related to you. And they can, like your mother or your brother can see your videos of something and no one else can see that. So that's a private kind of post, right? Just like in Facebook, you can control who's viewing whatever you post if you choose to, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact details surrounding that kind of thing, but I believe, and Greg would know this better, but when you post a video to a group page or a team page, like the cycling group, I can choose whether it's like a public video or
Yeah.
if it's just restricted to that group.
But I think adults, you're like, not like in your kid and you're going to be recruited, you want the whole world to see you. Like you can be in China and, or we're not China, but somewhere else and go on Huddle and you can find, you know, like my daughter's video from when she was, you know, right. But if you're an adult, maybe you don't want the world looking at your little cycling group, you know, tour in France or something. It's like there are different levels of interest.
it's privacy settings. Like Facebook has privacy settings. When you post something, you could change it to public. You could change it to my friends only.
Right.
You could change. So maybe those privacy settings should be options for them when they do post videos.
Yeah, I think that's important. People, not everyone's going to want to put everything out there. Like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I think people will be more guarded.
Yeah, I know that there are one or two controls around like the videos and things like that, and Greg would know them better. I don't recall them offhand. I know that there is a certain level of control. It doesn't go to that extent. Like Facebook is, I think there's 4 levels. There's me only, which makes it private.
Timeline,
only
yeah.
I can see it. There's friends, so you have to have that friend connection. There's friends of friends. So all my friends can see it and all of their friends can see it. And then there's public. Now, if a student athlete is trying to be recruited and they have a video, they're going to need to make it public.
Right.
So that a recruiter that they're not yet connected to can see it. You know, I mean, there's really no way around that. Otherwise, you would, you know, the only other way is you would have to get that recruiter and that athlete to connect somehow.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying, like the adults
Friend.
want that. They're different needs, you know, depending on what, you know, what you're looking for to get out of it. But the privacy's got to be a.
Yeah, I'm not sure what level of privacy settings exist in the current site and how that's going to transpose into the new site at this point. I don't know how detailed we're going to get with that.
I don't think there is much about those privacy settings in the current site.
I think there's something where make it like if I post a video, there is something where it's like make it available to everyone, or it's just available to me or something. I forget what it is.
Yeah, there's actually it's blog content and it's public. It's ambassador content, personal content, private, and you can click on either of those things. But also there should be one that says propose it to the ambassador of a group, and then you have your choice of groups. So if I'm
And then the ambassador has to approve it to make sure it's, you know, not malicious or inappropriate or whatever.
right, and then it'll show up on the group page as well. So that's also another level that's really cool.
Yeah, so there are some controls. I just can't speak to what they are specifically at this
I'm
point.
just thinking that we flip that thought process out. People might not want to be posting, other than like recruiting, you know, kid out of high school, that may not want everything to be public. They might want it to be tighter circle of who views it within their group or their community or whatever.
And LinkedIn is quite the opposite. It's completely public. Anything you post, all they have to do is look up your name, correct?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true. I believe you have to be connected to someone.
Yeah.
Oh, really? In your network? Is
Yeah.
it the network?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I guess we should just think about, like, you know, different users and what they might, you know, what their needs might be and how they might want this just beyond the high school athlete or the, you know, like it's like a privacy thing. Like maybe someone puts up their little league kid, their little league video, you know, with the public, you know, you've got, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
child, you know, I mean, it's a child, it's different, I guess, but I'm just saying, like, you could put up your niece's college game, you know, and make it public, and maybe, you know, they don't want that, or, you know, like, I'm just saying people might have different ways of viewing it, at adults versus kids versus, you know,
no,
different.
to me, it would seem that, like, given what we know about how the site functions now, there would be a group created for that cycling group.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
You
guess
know,
my
and
question
people
was,
would-
they can control the privacy of those videos within that within their group, whatever that group might be.
Yeah, it's like make it available to the group or not.
Right. Okay.
You know, I mean, if
All right.
so,
You realize, guys, we just
There
did
is-
the
there is
first
a-
page of all this stuff.
Just
yeah,
the
and it's
first
almost
page.
fun.
That was just the first
have-
page.
Well, yeah, but we have to
I have to-
set it up. I mean, I think we're setting ourselves up for the next like 5 pages, but I think if we don't start off with the good, and we can keep talking about this for 3 days, but like, I think if we don't set ourselves up properly, the rest of it's not going to flow.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Absolutely.
to kind of define what information are we trying to gather? What is the hierarchy of the information and how it relates to each other? And only once you come to some consensus on that, can you start identifying how do you start asking the questions that you need? How do we do that? And when we finish that step, Greg, we can go back to the one question we haven't answered of yours, which is, well, then how do we get the user to come back to where they finished? Can't answer that question until we know how the questions are laid out.
Right. And then it comes down to just like, okay, we left off on question 23. And then we just ask them, hey, come back and complete the, you know, question 23, whatever it is.
Hey team, I hate to have to run, but 2 hours with the little man is about my capacity.
That's sort of crazy that you lasted this long.
Well, I ran up and got a bottle. He's fed twice during this time. I also changed him and put cream on his face. His poor little eczema-ridden face.
Well, you know, if you fed him twice on Monday, I expect you to serve lunch to all of us.
Don't think the lunch part isn't happening. I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything today. It's 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
Okay. So
Okay.
at 11, we'll all kind of hash this out and then circle back, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Good job
Talk to you
today,
guys
guys.
I'm going to set up the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch and, like, you know, catch up with what we missed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greg, I have a side question for you, and that is, you know, you record a lot of the Zoom sessions, like with the developers, with us, and then you put it on YouTube, and they're like accessible to anybody. Aren't you afraid that a competitor or that like this, you know, these trade secrets are out there for the world
Well,
to see?
what I wanted to do was, yes, as a matter of fact, we can make that private by a click of a button. They're in special playlists. So I can make the playlist only accessible to a certain bunch of people.
I would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something that just kind of, you know, like especially the technology portion when we're talking to the developers about how we're building certain things, and
Yeah.
you know, that stuff should be really proprietary. And granted, I don't think we're at a competitive advantage where people are trying to steal our business from us yet, but
They're going to be there.
just seems odd that
Yeah.
it's
One of the reasons why I'm doing that right now is because we have some investors who want to actually see us in action, and it helps a lot to have that visibility. But I can just invite specific people into that by, you know, making it private and then say available only to us people on the team, and then an investor or two. So I can do that too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we should-
well advised, and I'll do that. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely take care of that.
All right. Talk to you
Okay.
Monday.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Great cast today.
Bye.
Thanks a
Weekend.
lot.
Thanks.